In medieval Europe, something began spreading across villages that no one could fully explain. It wasn't just disease, and it wasn't just death. It was the growing belief that the dead were not staying dead, and that something might be returning to the world of the living. You were in Eastern Europe several centuries ago. A small village sits surrounded by forests and farmland. Life is fragile, and every sound at night feels heavier than it should be. People avoid going outside after sunset. Doors are locked earlier than necessary. And whenever someone dies, the entire village becomes tense in a way that goes beyond grief. It is not only sadness, but fear of what might follow. A man has died recently. Nothing unusual at first because death is common, but within a few days, rumors begin to spread. People say the soil on the grave looks disturbed. Some claim animals avoid the cemetery. Others whisper that a shadow was seen near the burial site at night. And slowly, a more dangerous idea forms in people's minds. The idea that the body itself might not be at rest. To understand why Europe became so obsessed with vampires, it is necessary to understand the world people were living in. Because this belief did not come from imagination alone. It came from three things happening at the same time: widespread death, limited understanding of nature, and the physical reality of what was sometimes seen in graves. In medieval Europe, death was constant and often unpredictable. There was no modern medicine, no knowledge of bacteria, and no understanding of how infections spread. People could be healthy one day and dead a few days later. Entire families could disappear within weeks. Cities could be struck by disease that moved silently and without explanation. One of the most devastating examples was the Black Death in the 14th century. It killed millions across Europe. In many regions, entire communities were wiped out or reduced to a fraction of their population. When events like this repeated over generations, death stopped feeling like a natural process. It started feeling like something active, something that chose its victims. People saw patterns that did not truly exist because the human mind tries to find meaning in chaos. At the same time, Europe already had older traditions and beliefs about death. In many Eastern European and Slavic folk traditions, there was the idea that some dead did not rest properly. A person who died suddenly, violently, or without proper rituals might be believed to remain connected to the world of the living. These beliefs were not a single unified myth. They were a collection of local explanations for anxiety around death and burial. When large-scale epidemics and unexplained deaths became more common, these older beliefs did not disappear. Instead, they became a framework that people used to interpret what was happening. If death felt unnatural, then something unnatural must be causing it. The idea of the restless dead slowly merged with the idea of disease and misfortune spreading through communities. One of the most powerful sources of fear came not only from stories, but from graves themselves. In some cases, bodies were exhumed for practical reasons, such as relocation of burial grounds, or investigations during outbreaks of disease. What people sometimes saw during these exhumations seemed deeply disturbing without scientific context. A body that had been buried for some time might appear strangely preserved. The skin could look tight or changed. The chest might appear swollen. Dark fluid could be found near the mouth or inside the body. In some cases, the body looked less decayed than people expected. To modern science, these are natural stages of decomposition. Gases build up inside the body, fluids shift. Skin retracts as it loses moisture, And internal changes can create appearances that seem unnatural if they are not understood. But to people without that knowledge, the interpretation was completely different. If a body did not decay in a normal way, it seemed as if something was wrong. And if something was wrong, it could be interpreted as evidence that the dead were not truly inactive. From there, the idea developed further. If some dead could remain active in some way, then perhaps they could also affect the living. And if communities were already experiencing unexplained waves of illness, it became tempting to connect the two. Death was happening in patterns that felt too structured to be random. So people began to imagine a cause behind it. Over time, different regions added their own versions of the idea. In some places, the concept became tied to blood and physical return from the grave. In others, it remained more spiritual, connected to restless souls or improper burial. These variations were not separate myths. They were different expressions of the same underlying fear. As stories spread between villages and regions, they began to merge into a more unified image of what later became known as the vampire. By the 17th and 18th centuries, reports of so-called vampire cases appeared in parts of Eastern and Central Europe. Historical records describe communities responding to fears of the undead by reopening graves or performing rituals intended to prevent the dead from returning. Whether or not these accounts were accurate in every detail, they show how strongly the belief had taken hold in certain areas. The more these beliefs were repeated, the more real they became within the cultural logic of the time. Each unexplained death could reinforce the idea. Each unusual grave could be interpreted as confirmation. The pattern became self-sustaining. Because fear tends to strengthen the explanations that reduce uncertainty, even if those explanations are incorrect. Eventually, what began as scattered interpretations of death and disease became a structured myth. The vampire was no longer just a local superstition, it became a cultural explanation for the unknown, shaped by centuries of fear, misunderstanding, and storytelling. That is why Europe did not simply believe in vampires, it became obsessed with them. Because in a world where death had no visible cause and no clear explanation, the idea of something acting behind it all was more understandable than randomness. And once a mind has a cause, even a terrifying one, it is difficult to return to uncertainty again.